Call to order the St. Joseph City Council meeting of Monday, June 21. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to do the public comments before we do Women of Today, or do we want to do Women of Today right away?
Well,
Okay, I'll do Women of Today, no problem. So, for those of you that don't realize, the National Women of Today were founded in July 1st, 72 years ago, and they've asked us to, or asked me to proclaim Women of Today's Founders Day, July 1st, in the city of St. Joseph. And we got the time all wrong, because I told them as part of the mayor's reports a little later on, but with any luck, Janice will show up and I'll be able to hand this to her. But so I have a proclamation designating July 1st, 2021 as Women of Today's Founders Day, St. Joseph. Whereas the Minnesota Women of Today support the efforts of women over the age of 18 in improving their lives and the lives of people around them, encourages young women to become involved and hold positions of leadership, and provide opportunities for all members in the areas of community service, growth, and fellowship. And whereas the Minnesota Women of Today is an organization of over 1,300 members in over 66 communities. And whereas the St. Joseph Women of Today have set aside July 1 to recognize the many community activities of the dedicated Women of Today members across the state. And whereas the St. Joseph Women of Today are dedicated to actively promoting such public awareness and service programs as domestic violence prevention awareness through Anna Marie's Place of Hope, Breaking Free, Tour of Cure, Bike Ride, Relay for Life, Wishes and More, Crescent Cove, Collection for Local Food Shelves, National Association for Mental Illness, Children's Hospital, Minnesota. And whereas the St. Joseph Women of Today provide personal enrichment and leadership training, and whereas the St. Joseph Women of Today's mission is to provide its members with an opportunity to serve our local community, learn from the experience within the chapter, and to make new friends and have fun. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Rick Schultz, Mayor of the City of St. Joseph, do hereby proclaim July 1st, 2021 as Women of Today Founders Day in the city of St. Joseph, Minnesota. And this will be presented to them when they get here at 6:30. Sorry. Item 2B, public comments.
Avenue Northwest, and at the last minute I was unable to make the meeting 2 weeks ago concerning all the road improvements that are going on. I pretty much talked to everybody. I've talked to Dwight, I've talked to Ryan, I've talked to Randy, I've talked to Therese. There's a big concern about closing this alley down, and nobody seems to really want to, I shouldn't say nobody shouldn't, but I've even contacted you really never got back to me, Mayor. About the safety of even closing down that alley. This is more than just closing down something. I think it's going to cost more money to close it down than it is for the little maintenance that actually happens on that alley. If you're aware of the two houses that are there, which one is Stan and Kathy Mays, and the other one is Kyle Schneider's, which is the Mays, which is where we have the case day every year. It's a nightmare. We all know it's a nightmare. And now you close down that alley, that opens up two properties, doubles the size of that case day, and I gotta deal with that. And everybody else in town has to deal with that. Doesn't make any sense to close that alley down. Them are right now the two notorious houses for parties. So now Dwight and his people cannot run through that alley if you close it down. So now they're going from the back side of the alley and everybody's gonna laugh at them. It does work. I've had him go through my alley across the street, and I just asked, can you run through there, give me some patrol, and as soon as they drive through, things are at least quieted down for the moment. He may have to go back again, he may have to do whatever, or his people. But on top of all this, that road in the alley that you tar is now gonna be one big U-turn. I have a tremendous amount of people driving on my road, not like the olden days. That's where the ballpark, entrance to the ballpark is. So we tar that alley, which is between Second and Third Avenue. First, I'd like to have at least a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit signs in there because it's gonna be a roadway. These are all students that also live in there. There's not just them two. You also have the one behind the actual barber shop, and then you have called the barber shop, the old Wolf Home. There, they are all in that alley. So either they're gonna decide to come my way and go straight across over to St. Ben's, or, and I'm not saying, I don't know if they go through the middle alley, I don't really know, or they're gonna go out the other way. But regardless, they're gonna be, there's one less access to get out, and the main concern is if that's the case of worrying about two houses of going onto Minnesota Street and that's causing chaos. I've never seen it. I've lived here my whole entire life. I'm having more issues now with children on my road that are coming to do the roller park thing that they have down there. The sliding during the winter. You know, there's a lot of stuff that happens on that. There's no sidewalks. They walk directly down my road. It's a safety hazard. It is huge. I can see these kids that are 21 years old with a half a hangover on, coming around that corner and killing a kid or injuring a kid. God forbid they kill somebody. But there are kids continuously walking up and down that hill. Children, you know, using that ballpark, using the baseball field, using everything that's down there, the ice rinks. So I really see no need to close down that alley just for the purpose of maybe 5 less cars that come around that corner and possibly hurt someone. Not to mention the fact of still, this is the party area. Bob, you're probably the closest that you know what's going on. Mm-hmm. Rick, I think you've seen what's there. That is gonna be a nightmare. It is the worst idea in the world to close that down, because now Dwight has no power to stop them two houses from coming together. And then we're gonna have more parties, not just the K-State, but all the parties are gonna end up being there. You're gonna end up having 2 full houses just having at it. It's just not good. That's not good. You know, it's already a dump. I don't know if Treese, if you drove by there, they actually cleaned it up if you did drive by the night we were talking. But
Yeah, no.
it's garbage over there. We're trying to beautify Minnesota Street, but yet you come into town and we look like a ghetto now you've got all this beautiful stuff a half a block or a block away from me, but from me to that nice, beautiful new area, I got ghetto. I have 2 houses. I have 2 rental houses on that street. Anybody here can attest to me, I keep the lawns up, I cut the weeds, I make sure all the garbage is picked up every single day. I'll do it myself if I have to, but all these other houses, there's weeds this high up against the house, looks like crap. You know, we need to do something if we're gonna try to sit there and start saying beautify the city of St. Joe and then come into ghetto before the beauty. You know, something needs to be done.
Thanks, Tim.
So I really want you to
Sure.
consider that.
Okay, thank you.
Matt Lowline from 32 2nd Avenue Southeast. Here because the traffic concern in front of the school. My kids go to school there. We drop them off, pick them up in the mornings. I've been hit almost a couple times because you stop, you got people in the crosswalk, and somebody goes around you and passes on the shoulder, and there's somebody in the sidewalk. There's an issue there. There's a safety. I've called the St. Joe Police Department, got transferred to Stearns County, And my wife has been working in front of the school all year due to COVID, and she's seen it multiple times. People getting past, stopping for people in the sidewalk. Something needs to be done, either speed or signal or speed zone or something like that. I guess that's what I'm concerned about. So,
Okay.
something has to be done.
Thanks, Matt. This is item 6, I assume, right? Okay. Thanks, Matt. Shannon, you want to talk too? Okay. Very good. Item 3, approval of the agenda, which actually should have been like item 1 or 2, but that's okay. Item 3, approval of the agenda.
Make motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda as as we've been going through it. Issues or concerns, changes? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, item 4, consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
A second.
Motion and second to approve the consent agenda. I do have a question about K, so motion and second to approve 4A through J. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item K, could you give me a little more background on what's going on? And I understand it's police, but I'd really like to know, like, is it all city buildings? Is it
Yep.
all encompassing community eventually, or what is this?
So basically, like I explained in this, kind of the agenda item is we had to start somewhere.
Yep.
And so I actually toured Northland Business to a few different sites. I talked to Ryan ahead of time, talked to some of our buildings that we might have concerns about. Wobegon, when Terry was here, he put just individual standalone surveillance systems that would record over themselves within a couple days' time. There's one down at Centennial. It's got a little chip reader that wasn't even inserted, so the systems were basically a waste of resources at that time. If we're gonna actually build on something where we buy the server, we have the recording capabilities, we can remote into it, this would eventually, it can be added on building by building as something that we can budget for. But at least my biggest thing that I asked Northland is that we didn't buy something that's not expandable or that we're boxed in, that we have no room to grow with it. This is basically unlimited. We can grow, we can add as much as somebody can budget for, basically. And then it can also add triggers to it so that if somebody's messing around with the water treatment plant or one of the Wobegon centers at 2 o'clock in the morning, they're outside the Millstream building, and it's inside those trigger areas, it will send an alert to all the officer phones and let them know that there's something going on there.
And so that was my concern. Can you do public works building? Can you do water treatment? Can you
Yep.
do the new community center? Should it,
Yep.
when we
Matter
get
of
that
fact, the building, when we identified 2 cameras down on Centennial that have the Wi-Fi capabilities, would pretty much cover that whole area. There wouldn't be, assuming you could get access to the Quick Trip cameras that are across the
Yeah.
street, that whole site from Second Avenue all the way up to just about to where, the worship center was, I guess the old pharmacy for those
Yep.
around. It would cover all that area across the Memorial Park. The cameras would be 360 with Zoom PTZ capabilities and everything. So, I mean, there's definitely an added expense, but at least it could be, I don't know if we would ever do an equipment certificate or what we'd ever do, but it's there and available, so.
No, it's exactly what we've been talking about for the last 3 or
Yep.
4 years. I think it's necessary based on where we're at today, and I just want to make
Technology's
sure it's.
expensive, there's no doubt about
Yeah,
it, so,
I just make sure it's expandable to other locations as we build and grow.
correct.
Counselors have any questions on 4K? Motion to accept 4K.
Motion.
Motion and second to accept 4K of the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5.
Yeah, so back in April, you had approved an RFP to accept proposals for the renovation and sale of the building that's known as the old fire station and fire hall across from the St. Joe Meat Market. We had that open for about a month, and we received 2 proposals, one from Obing Distilling Labs and also from Spring Hill Companies. The evaluation panel was made up of staff, including myself, our Community Development Director Nate Keller, Randy Sabart, Ryan Wensman, and Lori Bartlett. So we scored the proposals based on certain criteria. understanding of the project, the firm profile, project team qualifications and experience with similar projects, development concept, price and value to the city, and then timeframe for completion. We did end up inviting both of the proposers in for them to allow them to present, and then for us to ask questions, so for an interview. They both did, very well in their submitted proposal as well as that interview. Staff is recommending moving forward with negotiating a purchase agreement with Spring Hill Companies, and that's based on their numerous projects that they've done, renovation projects, while the other one didn't have that experience. And then the most recent one that Shannon Wager, she is here this evening. She is the principal of Spring Hill Companies. She did the recent one in St. Joseph on the northwest corner of Minnesota Street and College Avenue. We based it on the architectural design that she presented. It is consistent with the city's downtown design standards as well as our comprehensive plan. We also agreed, the panel, that the distillery is more appropriate on a larger site. They have warehousing needs, so they would need more parking, unloading and loading areas. So with that, we are recommending a motion to approve moving forward with drafting of that purchase agreement with Spring Hill Companies. And again, Shannon is here this evening if you would like her to, or if she would like to come up and speak as well, so.
Want to make a motion?
Okay, the initial proposal,
Okay.
the initial proposal is, somewhat fine, but, there's also encroachment on other property that's not included with the, parcel. Parking isn't addressed. I'm not gonna overlook parking, just because. The windows on the building face a residential house. That's not good. There are some things that I don't like about I like the proposal, but some of the layout on the initial rendering of the business, you'd have to approach the neighbors, what's going on there, parking, and things of that nature.
Isn't it
And
facing-
this proposal didn't address any of that.
It's facing the meat market, correct?
No,
That's how I would,
Well, if you look at the
misunderstanding.
drawing, the whole north side of the building is windows. And that's right into a residential property right next to it.
So the concept plan does envision potentially windows on that north side, that is true. Within our downtown district, we do allow off-street parking for, customers. As far as employees, there is parking that could be accomplished or accommodated if the city council would be agreeable to doing a parking agreement. It would be in the backside abutting the alleyway, so
That's
there
not
is
enough parking.
potential.
For two businesses to go in there. We're talking possibly a Bella Cucina
Yeah,
type.
but if you're looking at the other proposal, that would be more of a milk and honey, and there's
I'm
nothing wrong
talking
with it,
about
I
this-
think that would
this
be
one
great,
proposal.
but I think this would be more, I think that choice would be more it's not gonna be as intense as
But it's
a
gonna
bar
it's gonna be
situation.
intense. It's gonna require off-street parking.
Right,
based upon
but I
our-
think
I
we
mean, our
can look
ordinances
into
very-
that.
Very clearly point out parking is required, not just to rely on the,
What would you like to see come in there, Bob?
I got no problem with what's projected
Okay.
to come in. I'm just saying that parking hasn't been issued or addressed. Downtown is cramped anyway, in the best scenario of things,
Well, I think that's what we're looking into, right, Rick? I
Right,
mean,
yeah,
this
but
is what we're-
in the past, the
Right,
city has
okay.
always punched in little businesses, not enough parking, little businesses, not enough parking. In the past, we have required parking. We've required a parking for Mikey Dice. We required parking when sales expanded some years back. He had that whole big parking lot, he had to create that in order to, expand his business. Meat Market had to put parking in. Bad Habit had to have parking, okay? And also, okay, two mistakes that the city made was Bella Cucina and the Crew one right now, because in the original plans, they were required to have parking. And I don't know where it disappeared. You know, now.
Well, I think it hasn't disappeared. I think we're still looking
No,
at that, if I'm not
requiring
mistaken.
parking anymore.
Let's concentrate on, if we move forward, we'll address parking.
Right,
How's
and
that?
then
Yeah,
one issue
thank
is the
you, Rick.
price also. I mean, both parties came in at the same price, I'm not gonna mention the number. You know, I find that kinda odd, I don't know why they probably was based upon some algorithm that the county had or whatever, what the value of it is. You know, cause it's half of what the, estimated, tax value is. So, I mean, I got all
Anything
kinds of
else?
questions on that one as far as
Okay,
moving into a purchase agreement based upon those numbers and without the criteria of parking. And there's also, you know, buffers between when a business moves into a residential zone. That ain't a residential zone, but that property next to it is a residential property. So you still have to, there's a lot of other guidelines that haven't been addressed that are on the books.
so if we move forward, we'll address those. Is that okay?
Well, I think they should be addressed before we go into a purchase agreement. You know, once it's purchased, then that's not addressed anymore.
So, take a breath, Bob, I'm gonna talk. So again, I don't have any problem with either proposal, really I don't. I have a little issue with the process. And that's because no members of the EDA were involved, no members of the council were involved in any of the review and/or the interviews. And it looks like it's staff-driven. I'm not saying it's bad, it's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you didn't include any of the EDA, which is specifically economic development in downtown. It contains members of the community, Dale, Doug, and Larry. And they didn't have any participation in this, neither did councilors have any participation in, even when you brought back for the interviews. So I kind of agree with Bob that should the counselors have been involved, or EDA, they might have addressed some of these things up front, how they would have been handled, and you could have answered them here. Versus, we may have to come back and say, how's it gonna work? So the process, again, to me, seems a little flawed because, you know, you're asking us to accept this, and there's a lot of questions. To me, there's still a lot of questions on how you came to where you did. I don't disagree with you. I've seen the two. You know, I'm from Osaka, so I know what Panther Distillery looks like, and yeah, you need a lot of space, but they're not selling locally, they're distributing their liquor to liquor stores. And I've also been to the distillery up in Brainerd, which is a smaller, much compact, would fit on this site very well. So, again, I'd like to move forward, I understand the recommendation. I have some questions about the process and how we got there, without including members of council or EDA. At the same time, I think if we move forward, we could possibly address those concerns, we have a discussion with Shannon and members of the EDA. That's what I propose, that we move forward, provided that we meet with either council and or EDA and address some of the concerns that Bob has brought up, which I think are very valid.
I would move forward with the proposal, but I don't want to move into a purchase agreement until we get all this stuff ironed out.
So how would you like to, how can we word that, Rick?
Well, okay, so the motion is to move forward tentatively with purchase agreement, provided we can work out the issues of parking and next to neighbor, I don't know what windows, what the restrictions are. It's in a commercial downtown redevelopment area, so I think you can put windows on every side of the building you want myself, and I don't know the restrictions, I don't know what they are. Move forward with, my motion is to move forward with the purchase agreement and then have discussion, tentative approval, to have discussion on how we'd address parking and the combination into the residential area it's at.
I'll
I
second.
second that.
Motion and second. Motion to move forward, tentative agreement to move forward and have some discussion with Shannon, and I think EDA, even maybe Bob, you wanna be at that discussion, or Kelly,
No,
whomever,
yeah.
just to work out the fine details on how it's gonna look. Everybody comfortable with that?
Mhm.
Motion and second. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you.
I got one question. Were these two proposals given the meets and boundaries of the lots, the actual lot? Because the rendition shows going into the neighboring lot.
I'm
So I
sure
don't know
that,
if that was
I'm
just
sure
a
they,
goof up or
I
what's
would,
going on
I would
there.
guess they know I'm pretty sure they know what the boundaries are about. They're not thinking about building anywhere else. That would really be like against us, our law or something. Okay.
From the drawing they
Item
did.
6, school zone discussion.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, can I take a small break here? Ladies, come on up. We changed the agenda a little bit.
Yeah.
And I apologize on that. We got to yours a little sooner than normal. So, who's Janice? Which one's Janice?
I'm Janice.
Okay. You and I have been communicating,
Yes.
and so we already did the declaration or the proclamation.
Okay,
So this is presented to our.
okay, I have to present it to her, and somebody maybe could take a picture of her.
Oh,
So we did proclaim today as, proclaim July 1st, 2021 as Women of Today Founders Day in the city of St. Joseph.
okay, you stand behind me. We'll hold it.
Like
Okay,
this?
we're together.
Yeah.
We're together.
like
We're all
this?
together. Well,
Okay,
however you
however you
want.
want it, I don't know.
Can you get us all? If you,
Janice?
little, there we go. Thank you. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Thanks. Thanks,
So-
Kelly.
Well, that's okay. Yeah, did you,
Can I read all
have any questions for us, or,
No, not really, you can,
okay, cause I
absolutely.
gave her a little speech.
absolutely.
Do I need to go to the microphone?
Yes, you do, Rachel. The camera is,
Yeah.
sorry.
Kelly, stop it.
I'm not doing
I'd like to thank you, Mayor Schultz, is it?
Yes.
And the city council for allowing myself, I'm Anita Smalley, and my chapter program VP, Janice Teskey, to attend your meeting. We are excited as a fairly new chapter to your community of Women of Today to make a difference in the St. Joe community. We chartered, December of 2019 with all the fun stuff going on. Woo woo! We have members from St. Joe, St. Cloud, Cold Spring, and St. Stephen. So we have a variety of things that we've taken part of so far is the trunk and treat over at Resurrection Church in October. We held a successful bike safety event. I don't know if you guys knew about that, but that was at Melody Park on the 15th. We had about 100 people there, and we gave out about 100 helmets.
Cool.
So, and with a grant from AAA and many generous donations from the local businesses here. Our upcoming chapter will be participating in Helping Hands and Holding Forward. We also help them with folding things for them. We're going to do a scavenger hunt in July. We're going to do rock painting again in August for Women of Today Friendship Day. And we're also going to be collecting school supplies in August for Kids Week. We are celebrating the Founders Day on July 1st, which you gave us, for the 35th anniversary of the beginning of the U.S. Women of Today. Note that the women of Minnesota Women of Today celebrated 72 years. And we are holding a root beer float from 6 to 8 on July 1st at Coburn's here in St. Joe. So we hope you all can join us and bring your families and
I love root beer floats. Who doesn't?
Yeah, I know.
well, I hope the weather's a little bit warmer than today, but not terrible. So, anyway, well, I want to thank you for your time. We really
Thank you all so
appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, you can get back to your long. Maybe this was the fun part. I don't know.
So we're on number 6, the school zone discussion, or speed school zone discussion, and I see we have state statute up here, so
Yes, good evening. So staff had been approached by the principal from the St. Joseph Catholic School, from some parents expressing some concern about safety and speed along Minnesota Street, particularly in front of the school. What I've highlighted here are a couple of sections from the statute. As I think we've discussed in other situations, back in 2019 when the Minnesota legislature changed some of the traffic speed laws. It does also afford the city some specific authority to establish a school speed zone. And so highlighted a couple of the passages that are relevant, like many things involving speed zones or changing speed zones. There's typically a little bit of a process or a study involved. In this particular case, this second paragraph here, I think, sums it up fairly quickly. School speed zones shall be in effect when children are present, going to or leaving school during opening or closing hours or during school recess periods. School speed limits shall not be lower than 15 miles per hour and shall not be more than 30 miles an hour below established speed limits. This is a fairly common subject. MnDOT has produced a couple of 1 or 2 pagers that I can share with the council afterwards if you're interested in some more of the details. But one, the law allows the city to establish a school speed zone following an investigation. Typically, the investigation involves a little bit more than just erecting a sign, establishing say a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. We're often interested in, can road geometrics, are they playing an impact on safety? Could the geometrics of the road change? And in this particular case, you may recall when we were talking about streetscape or improvements to Minnesota Street, we had talked about even some traffic calming activities. So when we talk about road geometrics, this would be one example of where modification of geometrics, for example, might come into play. Traffic volumes, how many vehicles are indeed traveling on Minnesota Street or College Avenue or some of the adjacent side streets. Pedestrian volumes, how many pedestrians do we have crossing at various locations. So some of these we have anecdotal evidence, so it's happening, but you don't have exact counts. The other one in particular is speed. How fast are vehicles traveling, for example, on Minnesota Street? We know we have a stop condition at College and at Second, and do vehicles truly get up to 30 miles an hour, for example, as they're going down Minnesota, or is it something less? So oftentimes you may find that you might erect a sign for, say, 20 miles an hour, but traffic are actually traveling close to that before you put the signs up. So is that truly an effective alternative? Even where the pedestrians are coming from, are they coming from, we know in the past, the Callaway Street, for example, we knew we had some students living in that neighborhood east of Callaway, or is it north of College? So where are the students actually coming from? Which pedestrian crosswalks are they using? So I just highlight a quick summary of some of the things that are typically investigated, that it's usually a little bit more involved than just simply number of cars or how fast they're going. But the city does have the discretion to establish such a zone. This is, if you wanted to know what one typically looks like or what signs are typically involved with a speed zone, you typically have an advanced warning sign. Those are usually chartreuse yellow or yellow signs in advance of the actual speed zone. What is also fairly important is that there's a placard defining when that speed zone is in effect. Is it when children are present? Is it certain times of the day when they're regularly present? But what conditions have to be present for that speed zone to be in effect? And that's important from an enforcement perspective as well. But you get the idea here, at least with this graphic, of what one typically looks like, and it might involve multiple streets depending on where the pedestrians are coming from.
So bottom line, to establish a school speed zone, there has to be a study done, and that criteria has to meet the guidelines of what the legislature put out to create the school zone.
Well, the good news is that they call it an investigation, so I wouldn't describe it as maybe as robust where we're maybe studying the 85th percentile of speeds, how fast are all of them going. Now, if we do want to know how fast or how many, we probably would set up cameras for a period of time to be able to track this and measure it. But I guess what I want to describe is it's not as maybe robust or as expensive as a typical 85th percentile speed study. This is more of an investigation.
But there is a study that has to be done in
There
order
is
to.
there are some processes, yes.
Is this
Yes.
the first time that this has kind of gravitated and started growing?
I think there's been over maybe the last couple of years, certainly I'm aware of concerns of pedestrian crossings, and I think the city has tried a couple of different things to
Has
date.
the school been involved in like cross guards and things like that too?
I
So they're
think they
doing,
have,
using that?
Dwight, help me out, I think there's been a period of time where morning drop-offs, they've had a parent
Monitor, yeah.
monitor.
Okay, yep, okay.
I know the city, I think 2 years ago, or maybe it was even 3 years ago, had changed some no parking in front of the crosswalk to help with visibility.
Right.
You've put out the pylon to raise awareness to drivers to stop for pedestrians in a crosswalk. So there have been various things that have been implemented over time, but I think the concerns about safety have persisted.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's important. I mean, my opinion, that we should look into it.
My take on this is, I don't think we need more signs on Minnesota Street or College Avenue. There's enough signs already. And I would like to think, Dwight, not to put you on the spot, but can't we get a cop out of his car when school is coming into session, just like park a patrol car on the curb or on the corner and have a cop out and kind of monitoring the situation? I mean, 7 in the morning, it's not like we're closing bars down and stuff like that. We should have more of a presence. And people would slow down. We'd stop all this BS of people doing U-turns, coming out of local blend. There's a lot of crap that happens on Minnesota Street, in my opinion, between like 6:30 and 8:30. And we should be monitoring that better, in my opinion.
Yep, and I would tell you that over the years, we've done that, unless you're there every single day. We have people that complain about 16th and Baker, the four-way stop, that people blow that stop sign. At Jasmine and Northland Drive, they blow that stop sign. Same thing in front of here. It's a very congested area with cars that are parked on both sides of the road. You come up to the T intersection on First Avenue, it's a high-traffic area, there's no doubt. To commit a cop to it every day, you'd basically have to do what we do down at Kennedy, where we have people down there. The school district kicks us money for putting an officer down there, but without having the staffing in, you'd be amazed how many different calls we have at 7 o'clock in the morning with traffic accidents and stuff. When that cop is not there, you can do a month's worth of work and it can be gone in 1 day's time. I agree with you, more signs doesn't make it better, but there's gotta be something. I would also, I talked to Randy, I left him a voicemail today back and we kinda played a little phone tag, but I would agree, I don't think just because it's either posted 30 or if it's not posted, it becomes a 30, that I would be willing to bet a lot of cars are not traveling at 30 miles an hour, no different than certain areas of the city. They appear going faster. If I drove past there in my truck right now at 30 miles an hour, people would look at it and go, he must be going 45 miles an hour. So it's just with the benches and the trees and the double parking on both sides, it's a very congested area. So, and I don't have an answer for you as far as an ingress, egress that makes it better or worse. It's just a really ugly area right now, so.
Isn't there, I mean, can there be a combination of looking at these, you know, as you're studying and being able to collaborate with the school and being able to see if these parents are able to, you know, and yes, I agree, you know, having maybe the, you know, but having that conversation of maybe a collaboration of that, so there's more eyes present and flags present to keep that traveling down until we can get these testings back and to see exactly where we're at. I think that's the biggest thing. As me, I mean, yeah, my kids are grown. I shouldn't have to worry about that, but my kids did go there, and I do. It always has been a situation. So I get that. And so needless to say, I was a flag person, I just stood out there the whole time to make dang sure my kids were safe, you know what I mean? So maybe a collaboration with the parents, and hoping that they would come to the table, so while we're doing the studies, we can at least get that safe in that area and with the police.
If they had the room, it would be nice where people could turn in at the school and go out past the church. I know that's not practical, but I mean, if the space
That would
wasn't an
be-
issue and being crammed, what would really solve a lot of problems is if that could be an inlet only and there'd be an alternative exit, but they're kind of landlocked right there, and I don't think they want a lot of people driving past the rectory house trying to get out or, you know, trying to improve it, but the in and out is a tricky spot right now. It's a
Cause that's
it's a
the
natural
loading for the
bottleneck.
bus, right, is in front of the rectory,
Correct,
right?
yeah. It's just a natural bottleneck right there. So, and I already have whoever's on for the day, the staff is not allowed to go on any type of breaks or something like that. Like, you're not gonna see them sitting at a Quick Trip or Holiday during school drop-off and pickup on that part of it. But even with that, the resources are still limited. And like I said, you miss one day and you're right back to square one again.
And my point again, I mean, I appreciate Carl Terhar's concern, but I just don't think signs are gonna make a difference. It's behavior, and I think the parents of the school could start doing the flag thing again too, you know, like the
Well,
crosswalk
yeah,
deal.
I think the collaboration of, you know, sitting down with the police chief and being able to come up with some really good ideas, I think would, like I said, I volunteered because I wanted to make sure my kids were safe. And it, you know, it shouldn't fall on the parents, but I think it's a great avenue for us to all sit down and talk about it and collaborate.
So when we had this issue with District 742, it took us about 3 years, I think, to come with a solution on drop-off pickup. And District 742 was on the hook for the design of the new way that they were routing kids and parents and where they could park, couldn't park. But it took us about 2.5, 3 years to come to a conclusion on how to make it work out there.
Well,
There's
you have
virtually
more
no-
space than we do, yeah.
But I mean,
Here, yeah.
it was a combination of pedestrians and traffic, car traffic. Here, it's much more congested, but again, I think it's like Randy's saying, it's not just signs, it's this combination of in, out, and how do we manage it? So let's, again, I think we need to just draw our heads together a little bit, and I wouldn't examine District 742 as the solution, but certainly there's some engineering that has to be done at some point. I'm not sure what it is, though.
So I think at least this evening, we wanted to raise awareness, one, that
Yeah.
you have at least the ability through a speed zone, if that's the direction the council wants to go, and that there's a bit of a process, but, and we're not gonna have the solution, obviously, this evening, but
Is there a timeline to get equipment to, like, camera and stuff? Because we don't want to record it now. I mean, there's no kids there. It looked perfect.
yeah.
So,
That happens relatively quick in terms of
Okay.
the installation of the cameras, and then we can actually monitor them typically remotely. Or at a minimum, we pick it up, we download the information and speed through the videos. But the actual collection of that telemetry, if you would, is relatively short. So
okay,
if that's an activity that we would want to schedule in September, once, you know, school starts or there's more activity, we could plan to do that at that period of time.
I would think at a very minimum, we should do that. There's maybe some solutions prior to that, and I agree, I don't think it's signing that's gonna help or the speed sign, but I do think once we get to September, actually seeing the traffic, both pedestrian and vehicle traffic, will
Yep.
help us determine what the solution might be, and then we can get Carl and the school involved and say, here's what, you know, we can engineer out of this maybe.
So we can plan for that being the next step, and that'll give us a lot of good value information, like I said, speeds, counts, and then pedestrians, so.
And we should communicate to Carl
Carl.
that our next
That's our
steps
next
are
step.
gonna start recording some back in September, and if there's anything else along the way that we can find.
I still think it'd be good to have those crosswalks that kind of come out like you showed earlier.
Oh, the bump outs?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would
Yeah,
make a heck of a difference.
I know the question came up, you know,
the snowplow.
this is
guy.
usually used where the volumes are higher and maybe even the speeds are a little bit higher, but
Mhm.
the I can't even say it, RRFB system that we have down by the park and ride, for
Yeah.
example, can also be, you know, leveraged, if you
pedestrians.
would. Now, this has been considered along College Avenue for some of the college pedestrian traffic, but again, there's a number of tools in the toolbox, if you would.
Yeah, and I was gonna suggest, I think we talked about this a couple of years ago, about putting flashing lights or something during those hours or something like that.
Yeah,
So, okay,
I almost like that better than the speed signs.
yeah, I think that would work a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's the end of that school zone discussion. Okay, very good. Item 7, engineer reports.
Nothing else this evening.
Very good, thank you, Randy. Department reports? Therese, you first?
Yeah. Well, we talked about the RFP earlier, so that was one thing that staff reviewed and interviewed proposals for. We also interviewed, along with the personnel committee, 3 candidates for finance technician. That was also on your consent agenda for approval of a hire. Lori and I, along with you all, reviewed 18 proposals for RFP for architectural services for the community center. So that was quite a task. And then the top 4 finalists presented to the city council and the committee last week. So the committee is meeting this Wednesday to discuss that further, share their input, and provide a recommendation to the council. So more to come on that. I worked with SEH to submit our bonding request for the I-94 infrastructure. And upcoming meetings, we have our work session tomorrow, and that community senate committee, which I mentioned on Wednesday. We did receive, what's not on the staff, my staff report is, we did receive 1 application for recreation director. So I will be reaching out to you all in regards to scheduling that interview.
Thanks, Therese. Questions, anyone?
Can I mention something?
For Therese?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, meeting 2 ago, the mayor mentioned about parking regulations for the winter parking regulations. Are you working on that, or is that on the back burner or whatever?
Options.
Yeah, you're right. So it hasn't, we haven't drafted any sort of amendment to that, but that is definitely still on our radar. It's a time of year, it hasn't
Okay.
been up there
Well, I'm just.
per se, being that it's summer.
I'm just
Good
keeping it
reminder.
going.
No, good reminder.
And then I have something, Therese, 3 meetings ago, I think it was, the former city administrator presented to the council. And I took umbrage to him presenting, having only been gone for like 6 or 9 months. And we were gonna look into whether or not there could be some kind of a ordinance, policy, whatever, saying that people that leave administration would not be able to lobby or sell things here to the city for a period of time. So I just
Like
wanna
a
make
term.
sure we're looking into that.
Conflict
Like
of
a
interest and,
non-compete. Right, like a non-compete. Yeah, okay. Okay, very good. Anything else for Edmund?
What was that word you used? Umbrage?
Umbrage.
I took exception to him.
Item 8B, community development.
Word I've never used.
Nate, oh, you got the floor, bud. Come on, let's go. Speed up.
yeah, so Nate's not
Is he
here.
on?
He's not
Yeah.
here this evening. But his report is in your packet. He had a 1 BR&E visit with North Central Truck. He's also looking at pursuing a deed Brownsville, potentially a grant. It's for a phase 1 environmental assessment. So that would be a partnership with a potential, with a current owner or potential new owner in regards to that. So he's currently reviewing that. He does have some proposed ordinance amendments that he's been working with the planning commission on. So those are planned to be at your next July meeting. He's also drafting the ADA transition plan, and that will be presented to the council at a future meeting in regards to that. So I don't know if you have any questions on his items that he had in his staff report.
I do. I'm wondering why we're looking at wayfinding signs. Because, we spent about 2 years drafting the signage amendments as they are today. And it was turbulent to try and get them down to where they are today. And I don't know that wayfinding signs, I don't know what I don't know what the problem, what solution it's for. I don't know that there's a big outcry for wayfinding signs, and I hate to open the Pandora's box for more signs. I don't know that there's a problem there. So I'm wondering why we're playing with signage amendments for wayfinding signs.
So that was a conversation that actually came out with the CVB director, Mary Bruno, in regards to wayfinding signage.
That's from the
Directing them
trails.
to the, yep.
That's what they're looking at, is as they start to events and coming, that there's a lot of traffic, and so that's what they were conversating about, is being able to get those signages out of town more, bringing them in. is
So
what they're-
wayfinding signs can now go downtown and south of town and west of
Well,
town?
I don't know if they're talking about downtown there, I think they were, and I could be wrong, so please forgive me.
I'm just
'cause it's
saying-
been, I think they were looking more at, in the trailing, where the bikes and the walks and the runners.
And I'm sure that's what the CVB is looking for, but if you open up wayfinding signs, then you have to open it up to other areas of the city, and how does that affect it? It's a Pandora's box when you're talking about signs. In other words, you could put them on Minnesota Street saying, here's Kennedy Elementary School, and you could put it on College, here's Neighbors Bar. I mean, I know what CVB was thinking, but if you open up that Pandora's box, then who else would use them, and where do they end up? And, I mean, I think you and I were on that sign committee.
This is Bob's house.
Well, I don't think it'd be like that, but
I'm being
we've often had the argument on how do you open up off-premise signage without opening the Pandora's box?
Well, I think they're having that conversation. I don't think there's nothing wrong with having the conversation and seeing where it's gonna go, and then what we can find out.
Well, again, I'm just telling you, I hate to open another Pandora's box. Off-premise signs probably necessary, but at the same time, if you have a GPS, you can probably find anything where you're going. Even if you're on the trail with iPhone.
What's the name of that song?
Anyway, so I'd question, if it's just CVB, then what are the alternatives versus opening up a Pandora's box to anybody that may want a wayfinding sign? You have to think of the Pandora's box of what signs bring to the city. Anyway, okay.
And
Any other
I'm gonna-
questions?
I'm gonna be on record again. We have too many signs in the world, in our city, in our state, so less is more.
Yeah.
We don't need more signs. Speed zone, school zone, wayfaring, blah, blah, blah. There's just too many signs.
All it does is take your eyes off the road.
It takes your eyes off the road.
Back in the seventies, that was kind of a national thing, signs. You know, there's even a musical group that wrote a song, I don't have it off the top of my head right now, but all about signs everywhere, a sign, don't do this, don't do that, can't you read the sign?
No, it wasn't Chicago. Okay, so
Might have been.
you guys gotta get your order here.
But I don't like signs myself.
It's community development, then it's
Yeah.
finance, and now it's finance. Okay.
It's almost like.
Lori, finance?
You have my summary in your packet. I'm just gonna highlight a couple items on there, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. One thing I wanted to point out is we sent out utility bills, late notices. Utility bills were due on June 16th. I've been watching, or June 15th, sorry. I've been watching the state special session, and one of the things that they're looking at passing is scaling back the eviction moratorium on rentals from the pandemic. And with that, opens up the ability for the city again to shut off water again. The League of Minnesota Cities reached out to the AG's office, and the AG informally said that the city can begin to do the shutoffs now. They feel like where we're at with the emergency powers and what's happening in that law that they're looking at passing, that we can look at doing shutoffs again. I would not propose it, obviously, for the current delinquents to give some time for residents, but certainly when we have the bills due in September, we may look at going back to that process again. Bob?
Do we have a lot of outstanding,
You know, it hasn't increased that. We normally average about 200 late notices that we send out, and this time there was 186. So we're actually doing just a little bit better than the average, so it hasn't been terrible.
Then historically, how many of these 186 are gonna end up
When we
with
get to
a shut-off
actual-
notice?
When we actually, well, we send late notices to all of those, and that,
Yeah.
and part of that late notice is that we will shut you off if we give you the 15 days to pay. When it comes to the actual shut-off day, we have maybe a dozen that we go out there, and even that day, there's still people that come in and pay. So what we actually shut off is maybe a handful.
Okay, so it's not
So-
a big percentage of that number that
Yeah, one-
actually go to the full fruition of the shut-off.
Correct. Yeah, we try to take every measure that we can before we shut off somebody, because then they incur additional charges and it may already be difficult for them, so. We'll set up payment plans and that sort of thing to kind of help a person, so.
Okay.
So, just know that that's, forthcoming. We'll go back to the ordinance process on that, and that's what the AG's office is recommending.
And September's coming pretty quick.
Sure seems like it. This summer's, well, first day of summer, but it seems like it's been flying. In your packet, you approved that resolution to apply for getting our American Rescue Plan stimulus money. The state MMB office is going to be administering the distribution of that. They told us that to expect it about mid-July to end of July. We're what's considered a we don't get the direct money because we're under 50,000 population. And because of that, then the MMB has to distribute that. But there's some you can only get up to 75% of your budget number from 2019, 2020, pre-pandemic basically. And so they have to look at some communities, what shows on paper that they would get, they might get a little bit less. And what the state's gonna do is anything that doesn't get allocated out, they're gonna redistribute back into the other under 50,000 population, can't remember what the word is. So they're holding off until they know what all those numbers are, so they know the exact amount that they're gonna be distributing to us. So that's why it's gonna take a little bit of delay in getting that money.
Is there any way that we, of the council, can get the criteria for those funds? What we can and can't do with it?
The U.S. Treasury is putting out more and more documents. It's basically 4 areas dealing with the pandemic, revenue loss for the city, supplies, administering vaccinations, for instance, being a testing site, assistance to businesses, to homeowners. It's kind of basically the basic criteria, but they're putting out more guidance, and it's getting much better now that we have some ideas. So we'll be reviewing that more in detail now, because I just sat on a webinar last week, and the U.S. Treasury just provided a little bit more guidance. So
Okay, so
we'll be sitting down and looking at that
totally
closer.
clear on what and where and how.
They give you like the basic guidance, but they're giving us like frequently asked questions to really help us understand what that is supposed to mean. So
Okay, got it.
since it's federal money, we got to make sure that we're spending it in accordance with those federal regulations. So
I don't know, some people have been asking me the criteria, and I can't,
it is on the U.S. Treasury's website, and if you look under the ARPA plan, it does give you that criteria and all that breakdown. So the last thing that I wanted to highlight is the rental license. I really want to give kudos to Nate, Vicky, and Inspectron. It's the process, I think, actually on those renewals has gone a lot better since I've been here. My outside perspective, seeing the process happen, it seems like it's going pretty smoothly, to the fact that we have almost all the applications in. I think we are at almost 90% now. They're due August 1st, but sometimes it feels like we're pulling teeth towards the end trying to get those last applications in. We're ahead of schedule from where we usually are in past years. So I want to give kudos to them, and Vicki being on my staff for sure.
Good, excellent.
It's been great, so.
Any questions? Of course.
Lori, off topic. So last meeting was assessments, and when people don't pay, we charge 3%.
Correct.
Where does 3% come from?
We look at, so what our ordinance says is, or a typical process is that we charge 1 to 2% above the bond rate. And our preliminary estimates of the bond rate is right around, just under 2%, so, we're just going right in, within that guideline. We have to, when we levy for those bonds, we have to make sure that we have 105% of the principal and interest payments, that we have enough revenue coming in to cover 105% of that.
Okay,
And that's to cover any delinquents that might happen in tax payments, assessment payments, and that sort of thing.
and I'm assuming 3% is typical across the state and the country in terms of what,
Can be different in all jurisdictions. City of St. Joseph's policy has been 1 to 2% above the bond rate.
We'll see anywhere from that 2 to 5%.
5%, yeah.
So it really depends on what the bond rates are, and when it costs the city more to bond, assessments tend to be a little higher as well.
yeah. I just think as a resident, 3% to me sounds high. When I can't go to Century Bank and get even 1% on a 5-year CD, or I can't buy a 10-year treasury bond, you know, at 1.5. So our policy is, okay, 1 or 2% above the bond rate, I get that, but just 3% just sounds to me like we're, not on you, just talking about the city, just sounds like it's just, you know, extreme.
I can tell you on assessment projects, since I've been here, this is the lowest rate we've done on an overlay project or a street reconstruction. We have some that are up to 6%, some of those assessments that we've assessed. It just depends on what the city's bond rate is.
Okay,
And the bond rates are still so historically low
Yeah.
right now that we're able to do it at 3%,
so we're saying 3% is low.
is the lowest
Really
I've
low.
seen.
Okay, thank you.
It's really good. Any other questions, Lori? Very good. Ryan, Public Works?
Mayor, council staff, I'd like to hit some highlights on my monthly report. So Millstream dredging, I just got a call from CNL Excavating, they're gonna start that tomorrow morning. We have reached out to the disc golf guys, so we've coordinated everything with them. But you will see heavy equipment down in Millstream starting tomorrow. And they'll be finished up this week.
And why are we dredging?
We dredge about every 10 or so years. That the holding pond down there just fills in. I mean, you could walk across it right now with the driveway.
Well, kind of. He'd sink an
Yeah.
awful lot. My
So
dogs have tried.
so I work with the DNR, the hydrologist, and we dredge that out to 4 feet deep, about every 10 or so years. I'm still working on some chip seal bids. Kind of having a hard time getting some bids on that. I don't know if it's lack of employment. They're just not, they're not reluctant to come out and bid these projects. So I don't think they can find people to do the work. But I'm still working on some bids for that. Streetscape project is complete. I'm gonna do a walkthrough with Jerry this week on that, based on his available time. I do have one light pole that needs to be replaced, that got damaged in that project. That light pole is on order, so just as soon as it comes in, it'll be replaced. We're slowly moving into the new Public Works building, getting some equipment in there, kind of feeling things out, you know, how do we wanna stage equipment in there? Where do we need an overhead door? You know, kind of things like that. I'm not rushing into it. We're just kind of feeling it out for now. Been a few questions and concerns about water, sprinkler bans. We can produce up to about 1.5 million gallons of water a day here. At the highest, about a week and a half ago, we were using 1.1 million a day. That has been declining day by day, so I think people are giving up on their lawns. I'm down to low 900,000 a day. So really, we have no concerns for water here in the city at this point. Staff doing a lot of flushing with sanitary sewers, a lot of parks repair. Of course, mowing slowed down a little bit. In upcoming meetings, we continue with our continuing ed with waste and wastewater, or water and wastewater. Safety training with the League of Minnesota Cities and our monthly SIMWEA meetings. And all of my meetings anyways are moving to in-person again, so. Henning, any questions?
Just one, are we watering the trees? Or is that ours? Okay,
Yes.
very good.
Yep, every other day.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Dwight, Police Department?
Yep, all right. So graduation's done. I'll just kind of summarize, and if you have any questions, again, I kind of touched on the surveillance system. I think if you talk to Ryan and his staff, probably the biggest priority is probably going to be our Wobegon Trail Center. If we're going to get one on camera, that one has been seeing a lot of vandalism and damage to the part where they're scrubbing it just about daily. So that would be one that if we do look to expand, it would definitely be a big help. But all the different ones, we did have a great tour. They're preparing a quote for the city. Again, it'll just be a number the council can chew on and see once how big or small or how far on the road you want to kick the can, and see once if you want to do it in the next 5 years, 1 year, whatever it's going to be. But we could also expand this to other buildings in the city. I just picked the top 5 that I could think of off the top of my head if we're going to secure our infrastructure. The council may have a different direction, so we can always quote those out as well. I did find enough officers to work the parade along with Brian and his explorers. It was a great help. So the parade will go on. We met with a couple members from the Lions this week. Ryan and I did, talked about some logistics, and everybody feels very comfortable where things are at. So that's a good success. And as far as the numbers go again, I thought this particular month I would just kind of reach back again. I don't have the particular numbers of what areas we saw a rise in, but thought the council might actually enjoy seeing what it looked like pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID, if you want to call it that. And you can just look at the month of May and see that we're off to a rocketing start to the summer again, the way this is going. We're up about 142 ICRs from where we were back in 2019, just in 1 month's time. I did have a meeting with the Metro Chiefs of the 5 area cities, and talking to Assistant Chief Jeff Oxen from St. Cloud. They're doing over 100 ICRs a day currently right now. They're just seeing numbers like they've never seen before. It's just out of this world right now. As far as staff goes, we did have one officer that put in his resignation and left to go to Wade Park. And then we selected another officer who passes psychological and passes Minnesota Post test. He's 19 years old. So after tonight's meeting, I'll give him a call and give him his conditional offer. Other than that, other than the 4th of July, we do have a few inquiries come in for some summer events like the St. Joe Lab School's Rocktoberfest. I've been working with Daryl Schaefer and his crew and Randy Schmitz about what we're going to do for security and stuff. And so it seems like things are slowly starting to get back to what we like to see again. So with any questions, I will answer for you at that point. Yes, Bob.
I'd still like to see a report on what the ICRs all entail.
Absolutely, we'd love to.
Numbers are numbers, but whether you can track what type of social behavior we're having.
Absolutely. And we won't be able to get those to you until we get a police clerk to help us out. We can't, there's just absolutely no way. With the data requests coming in daily, Mary is swamped. We cannot squeeze any more out of that sponge, if you want to call her that, so.
I was gonna ask, did we approve that job description?
It's approved,
It just,
yeah.
is it posted?
So we have, yes, we approved it, and so I'm actually working with Flattery and Hood, our labor legal counsel, in regards to grading it. So they're having some, I don't want to say issue, well, it is issue in regards to matching the grading and the point system. So I'm
Okay.
working through that with them, I'm making sure that it's graded properly. So that's the holdup.
Once that's graded, can we just post it if we got
Mhm.
you got
We
a 30
abs-
post? Okay.
yep.
Good, I wanted to make sure, because I know we're not getting any faster after those, yeah.
So a police officer went to Wade Park
Correct.
because,
Career
Thanks.
advancement, I guess, would probably be lack of better words. Little bit larger department. There's more potential for growth. They pay more per hour than we do. He'll start out higher there, starting out than what he was at after nearly 4 years here. And they pay 100% of his insurance. So when he did the math for his daughter and everything else, he just,
no brainer.
yep, he just said, I won't
money.
max out here. Like it'll be quicker over there. So, and we've been in Wade Park so much frequently anyways. If you're gonna work in Wade Park, you might as well go over there. So,
So on balance, Chief, Therese, Lori, where do we stand as a city in terms of what we pay our officers compared to Waite Park, Sauk Rapids, Sartell? Where are we at, like for an entry-level cop, like this person that's gonna start?
So I don't remember the exact figure, so I'd like to get those to you so you could review that. But I can tell you that we are significantly lower than the area cities for starting.
Why? Why are we lower?
There's a lot less.
Mr. Mayor?
There's a lot less of us. I mean, outside of Wade Park and their tax situation, it would cost us an awful lot more. 30% of our properties are tax exempt and don't pay for policing. And that's a portion of it. St. Cloud is larger industrial base, Sauk Rapids does, Sartell's larger city. So
we
it
just
comes about paying us.
We don't take in enough revenue to be able
Well,
to?
we
No, no,
could.
no, We have less crime.
Well, we
in my
could,
opinion.
we'd have to
We're a
increase,
safer
we'd have to
city,
increase our
in my
taxes to pay
opinion.
for it.
Yeah, but we're growing and it looks like these numbers are growing. Maybe that is something that we might need to look at.
Well, and certainly,
And we can't
we could pay
we
our,
can't keep saying we're a small town anymore. We're growing.
And what makes
well,
you
we
say
can
that?
certainly get more police officers, but we can't get more police officers and pay more. Or we can keep the staff we have and pay them a lot more. And that would increase crime. So, you know, it's a double-edged sword of trying to pay who we have, what going wages. If you look at populations of 7,000 outside of the 6 metro area, we're probably pretty equal. If you look at,
We're
I don't
probably
know,
high.
Northfield or,
Yeah.
you know, the town on St. Peter or Crookston maybe.
Cold Spring, Avon,
But they're quite a bit smaller. They're 3,000, 2,000 people. So
Well,
I'm just saying.
The fact of the matter is, right now, it's candidates.
It is. I mean, we're gonna
Nobody
do
wants
this.
to,
about money,
no,
it's
nobody
about
wants to
people.
do it.
Well, and the last time we interviewed, we had 6 candidates. Is that it?
Correct.
And, you know, we're gonna have to do it again. There's just not a lot of people in the pool right now.
Are you getting, the candidates, are they quite young or are we
Very.
getting some seasoned?
Yeah, this latest one is the youngest I think we've hired in a very long time.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of season coming to the table.
That and it's hard to pull a veteran officer from anywhere's. They would take such a tremendous pay cut to come here. It would
Right.
never be feasible.
Well, that's what I'm
Yeah, you
saying.
would never pull a veteran officer from, some of them even Cold Spring or Avon or anybody else that wants you. I mean, we do some lateral pay, there's no doubt about it, but, you know, you still have to try to come up to where they're gonna fit into the pay scale. And, you know, for the most part, the draw, you can compare us, like over the years, and I've been a part of our negotiating group over the years. They compare us to Princeton and Cambridge and Big Lake and all the different ones. But an officer, and I think Brian would probably back me on this, an officer that works for the city of St. Joseph right now is most likely to take another career advancement position with the city of Sartell, Sauk Rapids, Stearns County Sheriff's Department, or St. Cloud PD.
So we're a training session.
Correct, unless it's somebody that took a job in St. Joe, say like Sergeant Matt Johnson, who's originally from Worthington. Maybe something opens up in his hometown where he wants to get back home. There's nothing you can do to pay that person to stay there. They're intent on leaving.
Oh,
But
yeah.
most of the officers in our area, if they're gonna gravitate a certain direction, it's gonna be to the Sheriff's Department, St. Cloud PD, Sartell, one of the larger agencies that pays a little more per hour, so.
Well, not only that, there's just more variety to do different aspects of the career,
Right?
so.
Other questions for the chief?
Thank you.
Item 10, oh, sorry, item 9, I don't have anything tonight. Item 10,
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all so much. So we're gonna talk a little bit about the alleys tomorrow.
Yeah, I wasn't